Good morning. Today we are going to discuss the last topic for our midterms, and our topic is all about the dialogue with the poor. So these are our objectives for this topic. Number one, we would like to identify our own experience of poverty. We will see here in this discussion that poverty is not simplistic. It has many different phases. In fact, poverty has six phases. Mayroong anim na mukha ang poverty. Second, we would like to uphold the importance of human dignity in the face of material poverty. Here we are going to discover that despite the fact that we are different when it comes to economic and material status, we all share the same human dignity. And this means to say that all of us have the same worth and value as a human person. And lastly, hopefully we could be able to apply the dialogue with the poor equipped with the teachings of the church. Now, just like what I've said earlier, poverty is multifaceted. It has many different phases. It could be both material and spiritual. But material poverty is the most easily spotted form of poverty. Madalas, ito yung nakikita nating problema uh, na nagmamanifest as related to poverty. Example, squatters area, people living in the garbage dumps or garbage area, ganun. So, material poverty. The poor are individuals who earn below the poverty threshold. Therefore, they have the inability to meet the minimum basic need to survive. We are going to gauge those people who are poor or can be considered as poor depending on their daily, monthly, and yearly income. Because this income are the ones that they use in order to provide the basic need to survive. But sad to say, some of us cannot even afford the basic requirement to survive. That means to say, they do not have proper food, shelter, and clothing. Okay? So, these are what we call people living in the threshold of poverty. Okay? Or they live in poverty line. Now, how is poverty measured? Just like what I've said, you can measure poverty by looking at the amount of income needed by an individual or a family in order to meet the minimum requirement to survive. Okay, especially those things related to food, shelter, and clothing. According to the statistics, as of June 2018, the amount of income of those people who can be considered as living in the poverty line are or is 2,096 and 20 cents per month. Okay, so if you are going to divide this into 30, because we have 30 days in 1 month, these people only earns around 66 pesos a day. Okay, so who are these people who earn 66 pesos a day and therefore they only accumulate 2,000 amount of income per month? These are the people who yung nakikita nating mga garbage collectors, di ba? Minsan mangingisda, whose income depends on basically on day-to-day basis. Okay? So, these are the people na they cannot provide the basic need to survive because of the limitations when it comes to their economic capacity. Now, poverty incidence in the Philippines, sadly, is according to the survey in 2018, it's roughly around 23.1 million or 21% of our total population. This means to say that if we are 100 of we are almost or more than 100 of Filipinos, 21 million, okay? 20 if we are more than 100 million Filipinos right now, 21 million of our Filipino kababayans are living in poverty line. Ang laking nito sa ating total population. Imagine 20% of our total population are living in poverty line. They cannot afford the basic requirement in order to survive. Those things related to food, shelter, and clothing. So sobrang dami talaga na mahirap sa Pilipinas. Kaya nga, until now, we are considered as a third world country. You are lucky because some of you belong to the middle class family and some of you perhaps even belong to the upper class family. But those unfortunate kababayans or those people who are less fortunate, in fact, I can consider myself as somebody who is less fortunate, uh, sobrang laki ng gap, okay, ng people who are able to afford the basic need to survive and those people who can hardly afford uh, to make the ends meet. Okay? So yun. Um, ganun kalala yung poverty incidence sa Philippines. Now, what are the 6 phases of poverty? The 6 phases of poverty are social poverty, educational poverty, health poverty, spiritual poverty, environmental poverty, and economic poverty. When we speak of social poverty, these are the manifestations wherein groups are undervalued and with few rights. So these are the people who are victims of human rights. These are the people who is seldom heard in society, especially yung mga IPs, indigenous people. Diba? Social poverty. Um, these are the manifestations of poverty na you will see in the society, wherein there is a marginalization, there is a discrimination in the society. And in the Philippines, this is very visible. The rich and the poor are really marginalized. Okay? There is a big gap between the rich and the poor. And usually what happens is the poor has few rights. Okay? They are mostly undervalued. You will experience this if you enter the mall or you are going to this is visible if you are, for example, you file a case, diba? If you do not have money, your case will not progress. That is the reality and that is the fact in this country right now. So we are experiencing social poverty. Then we have educational poverty, lack of education leading to lack of opportunity, and people are getting prone to exploitation and abuse. So you are lucky because you can be able to study in a good school, but some of us um, cannot afford to study in a private school. And you see the problems in public schools right now. While it is true that most intelligent people come from public schools, okay? This is not this is not stereotyping, but because of the numbers, 'di ba? They have more than, I think they double the amount of students uh, that there is present in private schools. So very competitive yung mga students doon. Pero kukonting percent lang yon. Kasi majority cannot afford proper education. I will give you an example. When I was studying in a public school, when I was in high school, uh, kahit isang beses hindi kami nakahawak ng libro. Wala kaming maayos na upuan. Uupo kami sa karton sa likod. Okay? So, may natututunan ba kami? Wala. Ang ginagawa namin, nagtatambay lang kami madalas. Basketball, o bibilyar. Okay? So, yun. Educational poverty. Then we have health poverty. There are few opportunities for sick people. In the Philippines, if you are sick and pag dinala ka sa public hospital, kawawa ka. Kasi you are not going to be taken care of well. Okay? Health poverty. Dito, pag nagkasakit ka dito, you can find a decent job. Walang masyadong tatanggap sa yung trabaho. Then we have spiritual poverty. People who experience hopelessness, despair, and feeling of worthlessness. Kaya nga mataas yung suicidal rate minsan, lalo na sa mga kabataan, because of spiritual poverty. They lack that spirituality that is hopefully will help them be able to be steadfast when times get tough. Pero since mababa yung spirituality or shallow yung spirituality ng maraming kabataan ngayon, they're experiencing spiritual poverty. Then we have environmental poverty. Example nito yung pollution and improper housing, which is alam naman natin lahat. Okay? And then we have economic poverty. Now, we are all victims of income below the minimum need to survive. So, ilan ba yung kabuhayan natin na below minimum wage yung kinikita? Ang iba, kinikita lang 200 a day, 350 a day. Di ba? May mga kababayan tayo, for example, yung mga nagbabantay ng mga burger machines, minsan 200 lang yung kita nila nila niyan per day, or yung mga naglulugaw, nagbabantay sa mga lugawan. Tanungin mo sila, kausapin mo sila. Ang kita lang niyan mga 200 to 350. Walang ano yan, walang mga SSS, PhilHealth, wala yan. Magtanong-tanong kayo. Pag nakakita kayo ng mga burger machine, yung mga burger joint baga, na nasa labas lang ng kalsada, kawawa yung mga trabahador dyan. Okay. So let's continue. Poverty, however, is not just economics. Because rich or poor human beings have worth and value. Mayaman ka man o mahirap, meron kang inner worth and value. And that is because every person possesses human dignity. Pare-pareho lang tayo ng value. Tayo ay tao na mayroong dignidad. Every person has value and must be treated with respect. Therefore, slavery, manipulation, exploitation are against human dignity. Kaya naman, wala sa ating may karapatan na mangyurak ng karapatang pantao. Wala sa ating may karapatan na mag-manipulate or mag-exploit ng kahit na sino sapagkat kailangan nating igalang ang dignidad ng bawat isa. Instead, we should be able to share the goods of the earth by being poor in spirit, simplicity of life, and not living excessively outside one's means. This is a little ideal. Okay? Masyado siyang ideal o may pagka-ideal siya pero napakaganda nito. Anong sinasabi sa atin ito? Sinasabi sa atin ito na hindi naman masama mag-enjoy sa buhay. Pero sana maging simple lang tayo sa ating mga selections. Nang sa gayon, we could be able to share the goods of the earth. Ibig sabihin, sa pagiging simple natin, mas makakapag-share tayo ng mayroon tayo sa iba. Lalo na sa mga walang-wala. Therefore, simplicity is the key. And simplicity means living not excessively outside one's means. Yung hindi ka mabubuhay na higit pa sa pangangailangan mo. Okay? So, mabubuhay ka lang ng simple. Kung ano lang yung kailangan mo, yun lang yung ipopurchase mo. Kung ano lang yung kailangan mo, yun lang yung bibilhin mo. Yun lang yung pag-i-enjoyan mo. Hindi ka na maghahangad ng sobra-sobra pa. Okay? Because pag naghahangad ka palagi ng sobra-sobra, it could lead to greediness. Okay? And then, therefore, you will fall into sin. Diba? Pagiging madamot ka, magiging makasarili ka. Yan, pinag-usapan naman natin dati yung individualism. Diba? So, okay. Now, what are we going to do, therefore, as a Christians and as Catholics? We should practice three things. To dialogue with the poor means giving preferential option for the poor. Ibig sabihin, we should be able to help the poor empower themselves. We should be able to help the poor realize that they too can be able to get out from their situation. Second, seeing the face of God with the poor. This means to say that we can be able to see the face of Jesus Christ with the poor. When we do something good to the poor, we are doing it for God. That is why the Bible reminded us na if you do if you do these things to the least of my brothers, you do it for me. That is what Jesus said. Therefore, we have to be able to see the face of God with the poor. And then lastly, to welcome the poor in our lives and we allow them to welcome us. Magkaroon tayo ng sabihin natin interaction with the poor. Kaya naman mahalaga at maganda ang pagkakataon na binibigay ng CCI. Wherein nagkakaroon ng mga outreach program and we are able to dialogue with the poor. We are able to see their situation and we are able to interact with them. And by having that kind of experience, we learn in the process. Both of us are learning. We learn from them and they learn from us. Okay? So hopefully you can be able to understand the quick summary of this module. Now, let me go through our module here so that I can be able to facilitate you in answering your module. So for the question part, this is what you are going to answer. Okay? For the question part, you are going to answer what is poverty. And this is very general. You can look for the meaning on the internet. You can look for the meaning on the module and explain what is poverty. And nakita naman natin, di ba? Poverty is not just simplistic. It's not all about economic poverty. Kung yun lang yung sagot mo, then kalahati lang yung points mo. Because poverty is multifaceted. Okay? So, multifaceted ng poverty. So, dapat pakita dito sa answer mo yung iba't ibang dimensions ng poverty. Yung iba't ibang phases ng poverty. Then, what are your experiences of poverty? You are going to give 3 experiences of poverty. Environmental, social, spiritual. Then explain it. Okay? So, ano ba yung mga experiences mo ng poverty? And then, what are your plans to alleviate your experience of poverty? Ito, very subjective yung tanong, experiential. So, paano mo maa-alleviate ang sarili mo sa poverty? Paano ka makakalabas dun sa poverty yun? How are you going to help yourself get out from that kind of situation? For the objection part, here you are going to evaluate yourself. You are going to assess yourself. You are going to provide for the first question. You are going to rate yourself by using graph your experience of poverty. So ranging from 0 to 10. Okay, 0 as the lowest and 10 as the highest. So, pwedeng line graph, pwedeng kahit anong graph. Basta just evaluate yourself. And then, sa essay part, sa number 2, you are going to answer this question. What type of poverty are you most poor now? Ano yung graph na pinakamataas sa'yo? Ano yung poverty na pinakamataas sa'yo and bakit? And bakit mo kailangan makaalis doon sa poverty mo? Okay? So very subjective yung tanong, very experiential dapat yung sagot. Sad contra. Simple lang ang sagot sa ang tanong sa sad contra. You are going to explain the quotation on the phrase. It is not wrong to want to live better. What is wrong is to stay of is a style of life which is presumed to be better when it is directed towards having rather than being. Explain this word, having and being. Having means being able to acquire possessions or acquiring possessions. Being means living the best of your life. Parang not simply living the best of your life out of pleasure only, no, but living a good life, living a moral life. Okay, so directing your existence towards being, towards truly living rather than simply having, okay, or possessing something. So and this explain this phrase. Okay, so you are intelligent people, I know you are able to understand this phrase, and you will always, it's nice if you can relate this with your experiences. Okay, and then lastly sa respondeo, before you answer the respondeo, read the rubrics and follow the rubrics. In your rubrics, there should be detailed sharing of experience, reflection on the presence of God or theology, and helpful tips on what others can learn from your sharing. Before you answer the question, as a Christian, how one must dialogue with poverty. Okay, so do not simply answer it. Base your answer, and all the elements in the rubrics should be present in your answers. And I hope I was able to facilitate you in answering your module. Goodbye.